Good morning, welcome to the Q&A session live here in the Manage Your Critic, from overwhelm to clarity in 7 steps. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cheryl Andrews. I'm the founder of Step by Step Listening, and I'm often known as the Strength and Solution Detective because I help you really dig down to find out what your strengths are so that you can create solutions in your life that have your strengths in mind. Because one of the biggest reasons why our critic plays up is that we are trying to be how other people seem to be and how other people might want us to be, rather than actually tuning into what works for us, what keeps us in rhythm and what keeps us in flow. So this is the weekly Q&A session, which I'm anticipating that I'm going to be able to maintain throughout the year, every Friday for 15 minutes. So we'll be finished at 12:15 today. And those weeks when I genuinely can't be here, maybe I'm on holiday or something, I'll be putting a video in that I would have produced in advance. So there won't be live questions that week, but you will have some kind of broadcast. So I'm going to wait to see if some people join us. And in the interim period, I'm going to start to tell you a little bit about the questions that I have left here. But also Susie has left a question in the group, this morning, I believe, asking me about what's the one thing I hope that my children will take from the book. If there was only one tip that they took from the book. So if I can go through these ones, and I'll come back to that one in a moment, Susie. As you're not on live yet, and it might be that I'm a few minutes early because my watch says 12, it says 12:01 now, so we should be okay. So I can see that someone's live. If you want to leave a comment, please let me know who you are, because it doesn't say for me who you are, and I'd love to connect with you. So one of the questions I got asked is what motivates me to write. I suppose the motivation to write weekly is there's twofold. One of it is that the big driver is it makes a difference. The big thing I know that happens when it comes to managing a critic and having clarity and confidence in your next step is actually really knowing that you're not on your own. So one of the biggest challenges we have in society, particularly with social media, is that everybody, you see this sort of part of them. I don't know whether you can see how far you can see down. Sorry, just buffering, but won't broadcast. Did this with another one I was trying to watch earlier, so either an issue with Facebook or my end. Okay, well hopefully you'll be able to catch up with the video later, Susie, and I will answer your question. But what I was trying to say is that often when we're what we're seeing out there isn't the whole picture. So people will present their best part of them, don't they? They're not going to present when they're in business, they're going to put them. So people tend to choose very carefully about what they put on Facebook. And if you do have a rant or a moan or a breakdown, people seem to criticise that. So generally it's not seen to be the thing to do. So you don't have somewhere to go and have those conversations, because you do need to, if we're positive, we're energised, that helps bring the buzz around to everybody else. And I have to say, I have reached a point in my life where I would say most of the time I'm in a very high energetic area. I feel very energized, very motivated, but that's not always been the case. And so when I was low and I felt confused and overwhelmed and didn't know what to do, versus where I am now, that's taken many iterations. And if I really thought that the solution was I have to stay positive in front of everybody, then I wouldn't have ever gone and sought help. I wouldn't have spoken to anybody, I wouldn't have got those answers. So what motivates me to write is that the number one thing is to make sure that there's nobody on the planet who sat there thinking, is it just me that has these weird, wacky thoughts? Is it just me that worries about this? Is it me that has these conversations in my head? And so that the first thing is that they get to recognise they're not on their own. And then I hope it gives them hope, gives them some solutions. So that's what motivates me. Hardest part of writing the book itself, and I think in business as well, and I see this with my clients as well as myself, is when you put something out there that you bare your soul, you do your best work ever, and you get no response. So I talked to a client actually last week, and she was saying, I feel like I'm doing these newsletters, I'm doing these videos, I'm putting stuff on social media, but nobody's engaging. And so one of the hardest parts for me was giving the book out to people for peer review, and a couple of key people not coming back with their review, and they just didn't say anything. And then sort of all sorts of stories in my head came up that, I found that having no feedback at all meant that I had nothing to calibrate against. So I made stories up in my head about it must be really awful, or, they're really disappointed in it. So it was all sort of in their sort of it didn't work scenario. And I'd lost sort of sight of the fact that maybe they just got busy, and I had this picture that there must be something really bad, they didn't know how to give me the feedback. And So actually giving things out and not having a response, any response at all, and was the hardest part. But it was the hardest part, but it was also the most empowering, because that having that challenge, having that difficulty, meant that whilst I was sort of in that silent phase waiting for feedback and I wasn't getting it, I had to come up with another strategy. So I had to then start really paying attention to who had given me feedback, what is working, and what, that niggle that I was thinking, perhaps I didn't like this. I went and looked at it and thought, actually, you don't like it, Cheryl. So that thing you thought you were going to get negative feedback about, you're not happy with it. And because I wasn't happy with it, I then changed it. So sometimes we kind of already know in our own hearts that something isn't right, but we kind of wait for somebody else to criticize us and then get kind of angry with them for criticizing us. But actually, there's a nugget of stuff there, because I have come to realize if someone says to me, that's not right, you're doing it wrong, but I truly know it's right for me, and I'm really, really tuned into it, I don't feel criticised. I just honour the fact they have a different perception and they have a different opinion. So the hardest part was not getting any feedback at all, but it's also been one of the most valuable pieces of lessons that I could have learned from the process. And then the other one is, how does it feel right now that it's done? Well, it feels amazing. It feels, there's lots of, how does it feel? I'm going to tell you now, sort of metaphorically, it's like there's all these bubbles over here, and they're all like balloons maybe, and they've got strings coming into my heart, and it's like there's all these opportunities now as a result of the book getting out there. So having got all of that information that's in my head out on paper, one, I can see it and I can feel it and I can hear it and I can experience it. But to actually get the feedback that someone says to me, do you know what, because of you, I'm going to set my own business up, and I'm really inspired to do that. Because of you and that book, I have a better relationship with my husband, and so we work in partnership, and therefore the two of us being able to communicate better means we're going to grow our business more effectively. Because of you, I'm doing the right thing in my business, which means I'm not taking my stress home, and so I've got more time with my grandchildren because of you. And it's like that feedback is just coming in, and it's like a gold thread of energy that just lights my heart up and go, that's what I'm here to do. That's what I'm on the planet to do. So what it feels like is like I'm on a Duracell battery now, and that I'm being energized by the potential that this book could have. And it's funny because it feels a bit separate from me now, but it's the feedback. So the next level or the next iteration, I believe, will be getting reviews on the website, getting reviews on Facebook, getting reviews on Amazon eventually. I'm having some technical issues with Amazon at the moment, but once it's on Amazon, getting some reviews. And I think that's going to be the really empowering part. There's going to be people who like it and tell me it's working for them, and I'm really looking forward to that. But there's also going to be people that didn't like it. But a bit like the hardest part where I didn't get any feedback, I think that's going to be really good for my growth, because if they give me feedback and I think actually that's really valid, then on the next book I can clarify, or the second edition of that book I can improve it or change it, because whatever I put out there is going to evolve and grow, and it's okay. It was just right and it was true in that moment. But as I know better, I do better, so information changes. So I'm really looking forward to the review part, and at the moment I just feel like even though I've got a real bad cold, I feel like I've been put on a Duracell battery, and that anything's possible. It feels, I used to get told at the beginning when I was, people said about setting goals, I'd write down the goal to be a big goal, and I got all the logic of stretching yourself, but I felt very detached from it. Whereas now I feel like I've got a big goal out there and I'm really attached to it. I'm really connected with it, and I feel energized and really in flow. So that's how I feel. Hopefully that's given you some ideas. So back to your question, Susie, you asked the question that I wrote, one of my drivers was to write the book was for my children. So if I wasn't around, they would know how to listen. And if there was one thing I want them to take from there, well, I think there's I can't do one thing, but particularly, but it's that there's two things. One is I hope they take from it that that they matter, and that each of us are of value, and our strengths will always annoy somebody, and that they have massive strengths that annoy me sometimes, and that I hope that they know that I love them. So I suppose that's a personal message. I want them to know how proud of them I am, and that even though they're quirky bits and they're stuff that's unusual that will make them famous and they'll be an amazing attribute and be able to contribute to the world, they still annoy me a bit. And that's not because their qualities aren't good qualities, it's just that it annoys me sometimes. So I think that's about them knowing that they're completely okay who they are, even if I don't always agree with them. But I think the one thing, if I took about from advice or the process, is that it's not unrealistic or unreasonable to need someone to listen to you without judging you, without telling you what they think of you, and that getting a peer support network around you who gives you verbal feedback that you are doing okay and that you make a difference is a human need, and that we all need it, and that some people are very good at doing it for themselves. So they will verbalize and say, oh, I've done a great job here, I'm really good at that. And some of us aren't so good at that, and that's who I am, and they may have learned that behaviour. So I want them to know that actually paying for professional help, having coaching or counselling or whatever kind of thing you do, that asking for help or even paying for it isn't a sign of weakness. So that's the number one thing I want that people take away. I think people undervalue the power of being listened to. And in the fast-paced world that we've got, we forget that actually having one person listen to us with, exquisite listening and really high-quality listening for, 30 minutes or so can have a massive impact. At the moment when I work with my clients for 30 days, we start off, there's like a 90-minute intensive with me, and then they have emails during the week, and then we have another 90 minutes, and then there's a series of 30 minutes. So over the time, they have 3 lots of 90 minutes altogether in a 30-day period. So what's that? 270 minutes. And in 270 minutes of exquisite feedback, where I'm also looking at their websites, I'm looking at their blogs, I'm looking at their social media posts, I'm looking at other stuff, other communication they're putting out, and I'm marrying that with what I'm hearing them tell me and helping them to align their message so that they're sticking to what's important to them and not being distracted by all the noise out there that's telling them they should do this, they should do that. But it's like really tuning into and really listening to their own language and making sure that they're really happy with it. In a 30-day period with like 270 minutes worth of listening, my clients get massive transformation. They go from being in overwhelm, feeling confused, feeling unproductive, feeling like they don't know what to do, to feeling like really energized and really clear about what's the next step. Doesn't mean they've pulled all of it together, but they know what they're going to do, and then with support they can continue to actually get it done. So that's really powerful, and I suppose that's what I want my children to know, and all business owners really, that if you don't get what this coaching malarkey thing's about, then try it out. Get someone to listen to you. Book a call with me, because it can be absolutely transformational. Okay, so that's about 15:15. I don't know if that's just you, Susie, still on. If it's anybody else that's live at the moment, please leave your questions. If you have any other questions, and I'm going to log off shortly, please put your questions below. But what I want to say to you is I wish you a Merry Christmas once again. I will be back on again next week on the 23rd and on the 30th. So any questions, put them in the group now, and we'll answer those each week. But I'll come in with some questions if you haven't got them for next week, because really what I want to do is make sure you've got a really clear vision and mission for 2017. So start thinking about that now, and we'll talk about that next week. Because unless you know, like this, you haven't got the lighthouse or the sat nav in, the destination in your sat nav, life can feel a bit like you're going around in circles on the roundabout and stuck. So let's make sure that you are set up with all the resources you need to really think big about 2017, and then the group, myself, hopefully will be here to support you to make that happen. Thanks for listening. Speak to you soon. Bye.